So like I was saying that, like, when at the height of BE, right, and you would get into a a hotel, and the service you will get from like your black counterparts would be way different if a white person would item. And have you experienced that?
Yeah, always.
And how do we fix that?
Oh, we can't. Yesterday we were having a discussion with a group of guys, learned guys, on a WhatsApp group. And I was telling these guys that, guys, we cannot accept racial classification. Race classification is not accepted. And the one guy said, yes, but you see what? We deserve how we are treated because we are always begging. The white people have the money. Our governments don't sort things out. We end up finding excuses for our bad treatment that we get by people who think they're a superior race than other races, which is not acceptable. The minimum qualification, the qualification of equality, is just being human.
True that.
It doesn't matter if you have money. It doesn't matter if your president did this and you didn't do anything about it. So this one guy was saying, but you see, when I'm Russia president, but cholera. So what? I must get race classified because the president did what he did?
I feel like with the race classification, even on ourselves, right, we do not take ourselves seriously enough to then say, yo, it's like, personally, there's one thing that really irks me. Like, this I can forgive, but like with time, it's like I can't replace that resource. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you with money you can, but with time you're like, no, African time.
The painful thing is Susu will come up. There's this woman, South African minister of something, of foreign affairs. There's a clip moving around where she's speaking so eloquently and she's answering questions about Israel and.
I remember. Yeah.
And people are talking about it. No, she's right. And she talks about we should be fighting for equality. Yeah. So guys say. So I'm commenting on that. I'm saying she's right. We should be fighting for equality. But the sad part is, only black people are fighting for equality. The other guys don't care. They're not even putting effort.
True that.
They are, if in their minds they are thinking, okay, you fight to get to our level. Isusu were saying, let's be equal. They're not even putting any effort.
Just put a pin on.
If you want to be equal with us, okay, we don't know what you're going to do, but they don't answer. They don't contribute to that discussion.
Just put a pin onto that.
Yeah.
Just a pin onto that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bold Exchange. I'm joined by a very interesting young man, Clarence Mwale. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Speaking of race and equality, you are in an industry that's been predominantly white dominated, and you're one of the few guys who are maneuvering that. Tell me some of the challenges you face, and are there more opportunities in your industry?
Okay, so it took time. It's trust, I think, that we needed to build. So it took time for me to be accepted, I will say, as part of that industry. My foundation was fortunate, blessed, because I worked in a white-owned business. And by virtue of being in that business, because these people have influence that I used to work with, that kind of rubbed off to the rest of them. So the rest of them trusted me to do what I do for these guys because I've been doing it right.
All right.
But if you're coming in from nowhere and you are dark-skinned and you're getting into this industry, it's always going to be difficult. You will always face difficulties.
And people have just been hearing you saying industry. Often got to return to the music industry. What industry is it, and what is your mission in that particular field?
Okay, so I run a company. I run two companies that are a big part, a significant part of exports into world markets, international markets, primarily the EU and UK. So we export fresh produce out of Zimbabwe and other countries in Africa into the EU and UK. The first business is called Fairmark. What we've been doing with Fairmark is helping farmers to get to a level where they are internationally compliant and their produce gets to a level where it's acceptable to be imported into these world markets. So our part is to prepare farmers and food industries for that international market. So there's a lot of compliance requirements that are needed, and that's what we've been doing for almost 16 years now.
It's actually a very interesting industry that you're in, because I grew up just thinking that if the tsunga dango wanama okay yakanopina mpoti yango sadoi, I didn't think that there is a crazy back end and all that. Tell me more about what makes you say, you know, out of all the industries that are there, I want to get into fresh produce. What then prompted that?
I'll be honest with you, this job found me. I didn't go looking for it. I studied international relations. I wanted to be a diplomat. My dream was to be a diplomat or to represent Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwean people in other countries. And then it didn't work out. So I went looking for a job that I could do meanwhile, while I figured myself out. And I found myself in this organization. And they said, listen, you're fresh out of school. There's this new thing that we have to do for the European markets that we have always supplied. They need this and that and that. If you like, you can read about it. And if you understand it, you can do it for us and you can stay with us. So I went in. At that time, it was fair trade, a standard for flowers. Zimbabwe at that time was growing a lot of roses. And it was also a standard called Europe Gap, now called Global Gap, which is good agricultural practices. And there were also the ISOs and the HACCP and BRC. So I went there thinking that it was a temporary thing. Then I got there and I settled and I read about it. It was interesting. It was a very organized way of production, of producing. They monitor everything. They want you to monitor the plant protection products that you use, the fertilizers that you use, the amount of water that you use, and the reason why you use that amount of water on this crop. It was also organized. So it interested me, and I kept on reading about it, and then I found myself stuck in it. And then I forgot about becoming a diplomat, and I enjoy it. And until now, I really enjoy it, and I'm glad I took that path because it's fulfilling. I have now obviously taken it a little bit further, which we'll discuss. But at that time, I was looking after that company. It had over 100 outgrowers. I was looking after the outgrowers. I was looking after the internal pack house facility. We were doing well, and we were exporting a lot of fresh vegetables out of Zimbabwe.
And you know, like I always have conversations with like a lot of people my age, some slightly younger, some a bit older, who always then say, yo, I want to leave my 9 to 5 and I want to get into farming, right? And what you just say to me seems so meticulous. Like you're talking about the amount of drops that need to go for a certain plant. Like how hard is it to get into farming, and how calculated do you have to be? Because when I don't go check it right. 3 hectares kangu dongoisa domasi ne chili zvatofaya. Like how hard is it to actually start farming?
Okay, so first of all, we need to look at farming as a career.
All right.
It's not a thing that you do because the other thing failed. You need to train. I want to say you need to train your whole life to become a farmer. You know how we train our whole lives to become a chartered accountant or to become a lawyer. You grow up with that goal. You set your mind on certain achievements so you can become a lawyer, so you can become a chartered accountant or a doctor or a pilot. We need to have that level of discipline and raise our children in that path for us to become farmers, because farming is not just getting a piece of land and growing a crop. It's actually more complicated than a lot of the careers, because there's a lot of risk in it. You've got to have a lot of knowledge of the crops. You've got to have you've got to have a clear plan of a business. If you grow a crop, where are you going to sell? And how much? Is it going to bring back the time, the inputs, the energy that you put in? It's not 1+1. It's different. And it has to be done with more precision than we think. So I'm not a farmer myself, but I work with farmers every day. And I have learned a lot. You need to be patient. And I've seen farmers feeling fulfilled when they sell a crop, or when before even they sell a crop, the crop comes out the way they want. But then there's a lot of other things that are involved. There's natural disasters, there's droughts, there are hailstorms. You've got to be prepared for that. And you need to have a strong mind. So being a farmer is something that we need to train for our lives.
Our whole entire lives.
You can't just decide, Dr. Jaramo, now I'm into farming. You probably need to go back to school and learn about farming. Otherwise you're going to be very disappointed.
You speak of the EU and the UK, and how competitive is our crop and our produce on those markets and at the global stage?
Okay, so first of all, the EU and UK do not produce enough to feed themselves. That continent just doesn't produce enough. The climatic conditions are not conducive. So they depend on ACP states, so Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific states. Caribbean and Pacific states have got a lot of their problems. They are islands, mostly. So that leaves Africa with this big responsibility, I'm going to call it, to feed that continent and other continents. So in terms of competitiveness, you've just got to meet the quality, because it's a buyer's world, people say, yeah? It's a buyer's world. If a housewife or a chef in the UK wants a tomato that is this size and this firm and that level of redness, that's what they want. You've got to get that kind of quality for you to be able to sell. So this market is while they don't produce, they have the money and they dictate.
And they're very finicky about
very finicky about what they want. But you can understand why. I'm also a little bit finicky about what I eat. And sometimes just the appearance of a food in the plate for me is important. I want it to look perfect. I want it to look appealing to myself. And that market is like that. So when they want things, they want specific things. They're very finicky. But they're not just being finicky. They can afford to be finicky because they have the money.
And then if that's the game that we're playing, so from the sound of it, it sounds like it's a very hectic place to be in. Because looking at just the distance alone of you getting a blueberry from a farm in Berengwa and then landing it in a table in Scotland, it's like it must be hectic dealing with the logistics. How crazy is just working the logistics of what you do?
Okay, so if you're a farmer, you need to choose a spot in this chain, yeah?
All right.
You have to choose, are you going to be a farmer? If you're a farmer, be a farmer. Grow the crop and grow it right, perfectly. Then someone else is going to choose to be the freight forwarder or the marketer. Let's say the marketer first. This is the guy that comes and finds a market for you and comes and offers what the market offers, what the market is offering. And you've got to accept that this person, for their position, they're going to take a few cents out of the price because they've done their part.
Yeah.
For the product to move, you as the farmer cannot do all of this. You've got to depend on someone else to do it, someone that is an expert in that industry. So you've got to find a freight forwarder, a reliable one. And you've got to accept that of the price that you're getting paid for your berries, this freight forwarder is going to charge a fee, and that fee is going to eat into
your cost.
Yeah? And at the end of the day, there are stages. If you're a farmer, you're a farmer. If you're a marketer,
you're a marketer.
You're a marketer. If you're a freight forwarder, that's your position. You cannot farm and try to do everything the whole way. This is where we fail. Because we try to do everything for reasons sometimes that are better known to ourselves.
Instead of following the value chain that's already there.
Yeah, so there is a value chain that is already there. Even if it's not there, you cannot do everything. Sometimes you even go to a GP and the GP tells you they do what they do, and then they say, I've done my part. You now need to go to a specialist in this. And then this person is a GP. They went to probably to the same class or the same university, but there's someone that specialized in something that the general practitioner doesn't do. So they send you to that person. So you need to accept that if your position is a farmer, you just need to concentrate on farming and do it very right to your best. And you let other people deal with the rest of the chain for your product to get to the market.
And what are our numbers looking like when it comes to like the amount of berries and all those things that we're exporting? Are we on the up and up, or
The numbers have significantly increased. So we don't only, berries are the trending thing now. It's because very recently, 4 or 5 years ago, we started growing blueberries. Scientists and experts came and did a study, and they saw that Zimbabwe is in a very good position to grow this crop, and we grow it very, very well, and it does very well in our climate. There are also other crops. There's peas. We export a lot of munch tree and sugar snap peas to the UK. It's like a traditional food there. Sweet potato, you can also export sweet potato. So there's a lot of products that we can export, and those volumes in the recent years, they've gone up. Because a lot of people, I think, one of the reasons is that the farmers are coming back, they're investing. The old commercial farmers are coming back, they're investing again in agriculture. New farmers are coming up. People like you and me are now realizing that, hey, you can actually farming as a career. So it's actually very encouraging to see young people farming, and not only young people farming, young black people farming, because now we understand that you can actually farm as a career. You know, it's not the thing that you do when you fail everywhere else.
We've been trying to get you to come to this show for a while, and when you just walked in, you're like, yo, I'm just coming from like a school run, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, 300 farms and food shops in 6 different countries a year. How do you balance that, and how do you balance your family life? Like, how do you balance that?
Okay, so in the beginning, in the first years, it was obviously hectic. It was, I needed to be there to be present. So I've obviously grown my business a little bit now. So I've got other people that I work with. I still need to be very present because, like we said, this market is very finicky. And these standards that we do, and the quality requirements, and the maximum residual levels, and all the things that form what this market demands, change all the time. So I've got to be present. I've got to be there. So I've got people that help me. I've got a team that I work with, a good team of colleagues that I work with. So that helps me balance it. And then I just have a rule. I do not work on Saturdays and Sundays. That's family time. So fortunately, my kids are in boarding school, weekly boarding. They come back on a Friday afternoon. Friday afternoon, I try to be free. Saturday is Sabbath, so I'm in church. Sunday is a family day. Monday, I start again.
I like how I know I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for this one, but I like how like 7 days are actually moving. Like, 7 days are like the new Jews right now. Like the way you guys are moving in business and dominating business. And what's your like parenting style like? Because I mean, you're this cutthroat business person. Like, when it comes to the family side, like what's your parenting style? And
I'm new to this, eh?
You're new to being a parent.
My son is only 10 years old, my firstborn son.
Unless you had a decade practice, but
I've got a decade practice, but you don't get better because they are different. The kids themselves, they're also a different person every day because they're growing up. So I don't think anyone is an expert at parenting. Maybe when you have 9 kids like our parents are used to have 9 kids, then by the 7th or the 5th, they're very good at it. So my wife does a lot of it. So we're both very involved parents. I'm not a traditional Adventist parent. I'm not very, very strict. I mean, you can look at me. I can't even be strict. But I try to, my dad is a very cool dad. Growing up, he never really used to be that strict. He would talk to me if he was unhappy about something. He's still very cool. My kids like him very much. And I think I've got a lot of that in me also. I'm not a, you did this, get the belt. I'm gonna, maybe we haven't got to that stage yet, but what parenting style? I just learn every day.
You just learn every
I just learn every day.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about this fascinating and interesting thing you got going on called Tuma. What's that about?
So after many years of working in standards in preparing farmers and food industries to get to the standard, to the level, a lot of our people and our farmers misunderstood this. You hear quite often people talk about sanctions, about how we can't export into the EU or UK because of sanctions, how we can't export out of A1 and A2 farms because they're contested land. So there's a lot of mist around that. So I just found myself with the urge to explain to people that, if you meet the requirements, if you meet the quality, if you have global gap, if you have SMETA, if you have what the markets are asking for, before anything else, you've got a place to start bargaining, And so we pushed and we pushed and we pushed, and I told the story. Social media, I said, guys, you need to get global gap. We need to get SMETA. We need to get this. Eventually, people started understanding that it's not all entirely sanctions or whatever it is we want to call it. Sometimes you just need to do what the market requires or what the market is asking for. But even when we got a significant number of farmers that now we understood what the markets needed, we still couldn't find offtake agreements for them. Because I'm going to be candid and say the white people, the white Zimbabweans, have had their own roundtables for generations. They've had their own organizations where everything is done perfectly. They've done the study. They've got the whole value chain covered.
And the barrier of entry is not as...
So when you come in and you're an indigenous farmer, it's going to take time for them to trust you to come into their circle. Understandably, yeah?
True. It's going to take time for you to even get the knowledge that they've acquired over hundreds of years.
Over hundreds of years. But we don't have time. Someone needed to take care of these farmers. So I went to the markets and I said, hey, 90% of the farmers in Zimbabwe are small-scale farmers with land. Some of them actually very good farmers. Because, yes, we don't have a lot of knowledge in commercial farming, but we've got a lot of knowledge in sustenance farming. I mean, everyone's got Gumusha.
Yeah.
Everyone, except for me, because my dad came from Zambia, but everyone farms something.
Yeah.
It's just in Africans. Everyone farms something. Everyone has a garden. Everyone has a Gumusha where you've got a piece of land where you grow something. So these people we are actually naturally farmers. I mean, I also like the first job in the Bible was to farm.
True.
Adam was asked to look after the land and till the land. Yeah? That's the first profession, to farm. Naturally, we're farmers. So I went to the Europeans. I didn't go to the British. I went to the Dutch, and I told my story. And I went to the Germans, and I told my story. And they said, if you meet these requirements, send us samples. Let's start. So I came back here and I gathered a number of farmers, and I said, guys, there's a market that it's possible we can export if we do these things. I've got markets.
What are some of those requirements that you had for when you came back to the table?
The Global Gap certification.
All right.
So Global Gap is the good agricultural practices that I kind of said a few things about. Then there's also a social compliance requirements that you need to meet. If you employ people, you need to employ adults. You can't use child labor. You can't use prison labor. You've got to pay your workers at least a minimum wage. You've got to give them decent accommodation. All those things that employers sometimes don't like to hear. The European market cares that you do it before you can do business with them. So we did these things, and then we grew the right varieties. So I went there and I thought, if the markets are okay with us bringing their products, and we can group a few farmers from small pieces of land, what are we going to call them? Let's just call them Tuminda.
Okay.
Kamunda, Tuminda. So I came up with that name. We registered the company. We took samples to Europe. The Europeans liked our product because the people that we were working with were so worried about making mistakes. They took very good care of the crops. Because their lives depend on it. Yeah. So we ended up with very good quality peas last year, and we started exporting. That's how we started Tuminda. So Tuminda was as a result of indigenous farmers still failing to get offtake agreements into international markets, even if they tried to get the global gap and the SMETA. There was still just not the marketing vehicles that were willing to work with indigenous farmers. So we thought we will try.
That's actually like a commendable job that you're doing out there for like a lot of farmers. And personally, I'd like to say thank you for actually, because you don't know how you're impacting people's lives. People are probably going, but I'm not just saying I'm going here to varsity. Lives are being changed by what you're doing. What are some of the global trends currently happening when it comes to, I heard some years ago, the trend, hemp, and what are some of the global trends that are happening in that space, agriculture?
Okay, so I'm one person. Every day I get this question. I get it in different ways. People send me a message or call me and they say, "What is in demand that I can grow?"
Onion, chilies,
it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You grow, you get an offtake. The market tells you what they want. You have the offtake in your hand because that is your business, the market. And then you grow based on the offtake. So if you grow based on trends or what is on demand, you're always going to fail because you don't grow the crop first and then try to find a market. This is why you see Muna Harare Drive, there's people parking with their nice vehicles, GT6.
And then some on the back of their trucks.
Some tomatoes or potatoes at the back of the truck. It's because they didn't have an offtake agreement. Okay, sometimes it's not always that case. Sometimes they did offtake and then things
things happen.
But most of the times people are farming before they get an offtake or before they understand the market. So this market, particularly in Europe, if they want peas, they want a specific variety of peas. You've got to grow that. Don't grow your own variety. So you don't go there and say, or you don't come to us and say, "Hi, I'd like to grow onions for the export market." If you're a farmer, if you can grow onions, you should be able to grow peas, right? So you come here and you tell us, "I've got land. What crops do you have available that you can offer me an offtake agreement with?" Then we offer you give you a list of crops. Then you choose the one that you like to do and you grow it based on offtake agreement. So we also work everything from the farm, from the market, back to the farmers. We get 500 tons of peas as a requirement for the year 2024. We've got an expert who translates that into the amount of hectares that we're going to grow to make the 500 tons. And then we identify farmers that are in various places
that are capable of
actually delivering. Because also credibility is very important in this market. If you say you're going to deliver 500 tons, you need to bring 500 tons to the table.
510 even to say.
So you can't then start saying, no, you know what, this and that. Then they start looking at you and think you're not a serious business person.
It goes back to the initial step, exactly. What we started talking about. You honor them.
Exactly. So yes, there are trends. Right now, the biggest trend is blueberries. But it's not because it's a trend, it's because it's a new, because of how the world evolves all the time. But very recently, the COVID pandemic, people started realizing that we need to live healthier.
True that.
People now have got more complications than they had before you and I were here. A lot of people suffer from a lot of different diseases. So people realize that we need to eat this fruit and that vegetable or this way and that way for us to improve our health situation. So that is one of the things that motivates the industry. So a crop like blueberry, they say it has a lot of antioxidants. It helps with blood pressure. It helps with this and that. It's a super fruit. And people all over the world are looking to eat superfoods so they can look after themselves. So that is the only thing that maybe fuels a trend. But food products are always food products, you know. I got introduced into this business when I was very young. I was 21, I think. And we were exporting Munch 2 and Sugar Snap peas, different they're varieties of peas. They look very similar, but they are consumed in a pod.
Or
A long time ago, we still export peas now. The Europeans still import peas into Europe at the same time of a year every year.
damn.
So it doesn't, just like how we always look for sadza. You know, no matter how much you go out there and you say, chero kwaita shortage echibage. Ukaenda vanoti, instead of kudya chibage, let's eat, instead of kudya sadza, let's eat mbamba iramanero. It's good. It's not going to change. You know, it's not going to change overnight. People always eat what they eat. People are like that. They have patterns.
Oh yeah, true that. We're creatures of habit.
Exactly. So that's just how it is. So I want to say, instead of looking for what is trending, just look for what you can sell at a good price and what you can farm or what you can grow in the best quality. You concentrate on growing that, you sell it at a good price. It doesn't matter if... So, nyaya yekutera matrends ndoinoita kuti kwamboita zviuta. You remember?
Yeah, chiuta. Yeah.
Whatever happened to those birds?
It's starting board. Remember those?
Yes.
Team iron.
You know, and then a couple of years ago, not very recently, people started talking about hemp and cannabis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know very good colleagues that are working on the cannabis and hemp industry. Yeah. Very good work that they're doing. But I saw people moving away from what they know how to grow to try now and grow hemp and cannabis because they thought that was the in thing.
Speaking of hemp and cannabis, is it making a lot of money in the Europe? The uptake in Europe, is it a lucrative?
I don't have a lot of experience in that. There are other people that are working on that. There's a Zimbabwe Hemp Trust. They're more positioned to comment on that. But what I can tell you is, I've been to Amsterdam. I go to Amsterdam almost every year. Smoking cannabis is legal.
Yeah.
Or is allowed there. But I have not seen any cannabis that they are importing from Africa. The cannabis that they are
consuming
is grown there.
Yeah.
Because they can also grow it. Because it's grown in glass houses, controlled environments. They can also grow it. So I don't know how that industry is doing. And I don't know how that industry will do out of Zimbabwe. But my advice as a farmer is grow something that people can eat, because people need to eat every day.
True that.
People don't need to smoke cannabis, but people need to eat every day. So if you're a farmer and you wanted to position yourself perfectly, grow a food product.
And like you say that you started this at the age of 21. What's the importance of having a mentor when you're getting into this industry and even in farming, as in is it really important to have someone who holds your hand through it, or
it's very
don't go pin down?
For me, everything that I know I was taught. I was very fortunate. The company that I worked for, I'm going to tell you the company, it's called Selby Enterprises.
All right. It's called?
Selby Enterprises.
Okay.
My boss, Linda Selby. At that time, I thought she was the most difficult woman to work with. Linda and her husband own this company. She was very strict. But everything that she did at that time taught me to be the person that I am.
It built character in you.
You know, she was very strict. She'd walk to my desk and ask me, what are you doing now? You know, I needed to know what I was doing at every time and give a straight answer. If you don't know what you are doing now, you're not being productive. And the company is paying you. You know what I mean? And at that young age, you just go to work to skive around and play, and you expect to get paid, yeah? Because you are employed.
True.
But are you giving Are you giving the company what their money is worth? You want to be paid, but should you be paid?
True that,
Do you deserve to be paid? So I got very lucky. I worked with these people. They taught me everything that I know. They were very strict. Adam Selby, he has a multi-million-dollar company, this Selby Enterprises. He wrote every single procedure and policy in the company. He's the chairman.
Shikes.
He wrote every document in that company. He understands and he knows it. Until now, I still go there and I help them with audits and stuff. Until now, I can't get him to change a document that he wrote in 1992 because he wants me to justify changing.
Why you're changing that?
These are the kind of people that trained me. And I was very, very fortunate. At that time, I thought a lot of things about it. I thought they were just treating me like that because I was an employee. Or because I'm black and they're white. But you know what? I appreciate it. They shaped me in such a... I wish for every young person to get that kind of a boss. A very strict boss. You know? Someone that can teach you things that can last a lifetime in your mind.
And then you pass it down to
you pass it down. That's how I was introduced into this business. And I'm very fortunate. So yes, it is very important for a person, for everybody to have a mentor.
And like, you know, you're talking about auditing, and as you audit some of those farmers and farms, and you know, as you go about your day to day, what are some of the mistakes that most of our black farmers, small scale, are making that you can actually then give a word of advice that they can actually avoid doing?
The biggest mistake is to grow without a contract, to grow with no market. So, business plan. What is your business plan? Yes, you're a farmer.
You have a piece of land.
You have a piece of land. Maybe it's not even commercial, it's communal. But you have to have a business plan. Whether it's written down or you have it in your mind, you have to have a business plan. Mugarima chibage, kana mugarima zvamurima, or mananga, whatever it is. Muchazoita say. You know, where are you going to sell? At what price? Is it going to translate into how much time and labor and all the inputs that you put in there? Do you have a clear business plan? So a lot of our farmers don't have a business plan. They just farm. You know, Brian I gati rimech bagi, gati chigarech bagi. Yeah. I will tell you now, a lot of us grow maize for sustenance.
True.
The big majority of people who grow maize don't understand why they put fertilizer when they put it. Yeah?
Do you know, I've always asked myself that, like, yo.
Man, vanongosvika time of the year yavanongoti iko zvinoita akuisa top. Hapana any data.
Why does that happen?
Because people are just following a trend. They're just following someone.
No, don't out, like, because in
There's no data collection.
Because I've got a small garden in my backyard, right?
Yes.
I've got a bit of chilies and what. I really don't want to use any synthetic product.
Yeah.
So whatever I use is the manure from the chicken run.
But how many times do you hear your tete or your gogo or someone that you're related to?
Fertilizer. And I'll be like,
Mwanangu washanda wakura, chititengero tete wako fertilizer. Yeah? Nothing, I'm not saying don't put fertilizer. I am saying majority of us who are growing these crops, kana yangu yakuisa fertilizer, turungoisa fertilizer because vanhu vanoisa fertilizer muna December. There's no data. Apana munhu anombosumuka kunobvunza mudhumeni weAgritex kuti
why are we putting top?
Why are we putting top? Why are we putting ammonium nitrate?
You got a crazy point there.
We don't have data. We don't want to learn. We are not hungry to learn. We are just following a trend. Tungotera. Vepa next door vakaisa top. Ndosaka chibage chavo chakaita green. Imimi saiwo top. Yeah? Iko zvinozvikwanaya. Ya time yokuisa a different kind of fertilizer. And people just do it because No one is data. Ukati wabvunza havana reason yavakaisira fertilizer. So we're just doing things because ndozvakatakangokuruwo zvichiitwa. You know, that's very dangerous. The world now is looking for farmers that collect data, that have a reason for what they're doing. If you're exporting into the EU, they want to know why you put ammonium nitrate on that day, for what reason. Do you have a soil analysis? What were you correcting? What is the reason why you put fertilizer?
Sounds like a science class more than like farming, eh?
Yes, but this is what farming is in reality. Whether you're doing it by experience or by collecting data or by sending samples to laboratories, you need to have a reason. You need to have data.
Damn.
Yeah? So this is where we just think farming is easy. In fact, when I read a marine I'm going to build my doctoral loan. Yes, no, I said 10,000 beds. I want a plan. You have no business plan. Yeah? You are learning as you go. Okay, nothing wrong with learning as you go. But how about all this money and all this time that you are putting in? What if you make mistakes? Why not study what you want to do first and come up with a clear business plan before you can do it?
That's and a lot of people varunyura mari when it comes to farming. And how crazy is it to finance farming as a small scale farmer?
How crazy is it to finance anything in this country? Where do you get money? We don't have access to loans. I don't have. Do you have access to loans?
No. We don't.
So I'm saying, whatever we're funding out of our
own hard-earned cash.
Hard-earned cash. You'd think that should be a reason for us to protect whatever we're funding, to protect our investments.
And that's when that data you're talking about comes in.
That data is coming in.
Do you feel like white farmers had a more advantage because they actually had better loan facilities to actually, they were funded to farm?
They definitely have more access to funding than we do through their own channels. That is definite. Look at the blueberry industry right now. The banks here don't fund, or they.
But takapiwa mota
because atina knowledge. Because atina knowledge. Someone came to me and they wanted me to use our farmers to grow potatoes for them. And this one guy said, it was actually a very good business plan. And this one guy said to me, but do you think black people have the money to do this? Because you need to put in money. This guy happened to be white. I didn't want to take that question as a racial question. It wasn't. He was just being honest. Do you think black people here have money to farm 100 hectares of potatoes each? If we wanted 2,000 hectares, can you get us 10 growers that can grow? So I say to him, our office is on Borodor Road. I say to him, go stand by the road. Look at the type of vehicles that black people are driving on that road. 300,000 road. Yeah? How much business could you fund with 300,000? Maybe 300,000 because they have nothing else to do with it. They have no information. I don't know if I'm going to 300,000. I might as well buy a car. I have no information about farming. I have no information about anything else. Saka, because I don't have information, the only thing that I know to do is drive a comfortable car. Yeah? So sometimes we're just lacking the information. We don't have that information. We are also not going out to look for it. If people are given information it's also sad because you have to find information, you have to
in drips and drabs. Yeah.
You know, there's not one place that you can go and get an answer. In bank mako chaimogapinda uchida ubatsirwa neaccount yako, you get sent that way and that way and that way and that way just to fix a simple thing. And you sit there and you think, do these people work in here? They all look like they're troubleshooting or they're trying to find, they're all new here. So that information, we need to have information centers. We need to give information, valid information. We need to give it to people and help people make wise decisions.
And okay, like I like the fact that you mentioned that you started off being mentored and under the wing of like a white business, right? And a white business owner. I want to find out, as in, did that and when you then look at and then you're now in the industry whereby you work with our black counterparts, right? Where do we get wrong as in our approach to business in general? Where do we get it wrong as people of darker shade of melanin?
First of all, we want to spend more than we earn, I think.
All right.
We like to drive fancy cars that don't bring any value to us.
Hapana singade Rolls Royce.
Hapana singade Rolls Royce, but Rolls Royce chakuitira chi. A white farmer wana mari anoenda notenga Land Cruiser.
All right.
Right? Land Cruiser haisi kuti anzi ane mari kana kuti ashamisire. It's because ari kudrive in rough terrain, pafamba achienda noona crop on the other side of a mountain. That's why ari kutenga Land Cruiser. Isusu tikatenga Land Cruiser yacho inenge iri yekufambisa mutown.
All right.
Yeah. So a lot of the times we like to we can't afford our expenditure. Munhu akangoita kamari fast, do you want to prove a point?
Neo mentality.
How
do we change that mindset?
How do we change that mindset? How do we tell people not to eat sadza?
Because sadza harina benefit yakanyanya stere kanti.
But it's our staple food. Indomwenda ku Europe nonoita 2 months, a month, 2 months to Europe.
Once you land by airport.
Once I land by airport, the first thing I want to do is kudya sadza. Ndotomwenda pamwe pacho nechida mbodya sadza makuseni masikati nemani. Ndimbokavira time yanga ndisina sadza. But that's just how it is.
But how do we change as a people? Because like there's a generation that really thinks kuti the ultimate goal in life is to get a GD6.
It's sad. But how do we change that? I really don't know. We need to get information. We need to look for information. We need to be willing to learn. We need to be willing to go through the stages of life. Yeah. Inini nasi iko zvinezvi ndikutoidawo Rolls Royce kana Range Rover. Yeah. But I'm gonna choose to put this amount of money in my business and reinvest it first before I do that. I'm not saying I'm the perfect businessman. I'm saying these are the things that I'm also learning as I grow. The first thing is I'm willing to learn. Are we willing to learn? Are we willing to make sacrifices while we're learning? So there's a lot of things. There's also cultural change. There's also how we are brought up. If you grow up in very tough situations, comfort mbija of Warora Wakats 5.
And tell me, just to wrap it up, what are the 5 things that you love so dear about this country called Zimbabwe?
1, the people of Zimbabwe. I have not gone, maybe Zambia. I have not gone anywhere in the world where you find people that are so peaceful. Yeah? Having grown up in Africa and in Zimbabwe my whole life, munoona queue, maqueue ndo atakajaira, so I'm gonna use queue. It's very easy to turn to the next person and say, hi, how are you? And talk to them. My son is 4 years old. If he comes in here, you hug everyone. In Europe, you cannot do that. You mind your own business. Yeah? Next to you, if you sit next to someone on a plane, you look the other way and they look the other way. I don't know what that is, but that's the thing about Zimbabwe. That's one thing about Zimbabwe, and also Zambia is like that. If you go to Zambia, a stranger anokubatsira for no reason. Yeah? That's one thing. 2, Zimbabweans work hard, man. Very resilient people.
Trauma response. No, I'm just joking.
Very resilient people. We work hard. Anywhere you go in the world, you will bump into a Zimbabwean. If you go to South Africa right now, South Africa yakabatwa nemazimbabweans. Mazimbabweans ndo ari kushanda South Africa. Zimbabweans are hardworking people, resilient. After everything that we have been through, after everything that goes on here, we still find a reason to smile. Then when you come to agriculture, the climatic conditions here are just perfect for you can grow anything in Zimbabwe. You can grow anything. So 5. I've got to think about the other 2 things.
No, I'm not going to tell you Vic Falls, ne Econet wireless.
No, Vic Falls, yeah. Human capital, the climatic conditions. What can you hate about Zimbabwe? Maybe Maputo, but Maputo anogadzirwa ne. Human capital, the climatic conditions, the living conditions not in terms of affordability, but just here, this is a place where you can...
Well, you feel safe to actually just drive around the road. Yeah.
You don't... Yes, Mazwana, there's crime here and there, but it's not about news. In other countries, it happens every day, maybe every hour or, So there's a lot of things. If I were to choose, I have opportunity to go and live in other places, but I'll still choose Zimbabwe.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And, it's an honor to have you here. And I really, on behalf of the team, I really want to thank you for the great job that you're doing, passing down knowledge to those farmers. And good luck in 2024. And I want to have you again in 2025 to honor 2 minutes. You do to our Dato Edao Kango Kamunda Papo pa list.
Thank you. So right now, we're contracting farmers to grow peas. Yeah? For the EU and UK market. So don't waste time. Don't think too much. Business plan tonight, we will give you a business plan. We'll give you a budget. We'll give you an agronomist who helps you. You just need to listen. Grow peas, let's export. If you've got more money, grow blueberries. We've got a blueberry outgrower program that we're rolling out. Grow blueberries. Let's farm. Let's export.
Guys, that's been Clarence Mwale. Hanzi murime mushroom gunzoko. Inindisharima peas, blueberries. Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate you coming and taking time to chill and hang with us.